So I would like to thank you all for your beautiful presence. Thank you, Solara, for having us and organizing this. Sweet sister, beautiful gathering. Many seeds and flowers flowering all over the globe as a result. So I thank you, and I thank you for your listening. Your listening with a capital L now makes a huge difference wherever we are. The Sufis call the whirling sama, sema, sama, the whirling dervishes, which is a cosmic meditation for staying in the still point with the beloved, merged in ecstatic communion with the beloved's presence within, the bride of our soul. They call that ceremony audition, which means hearing. So this is actually the greatest mystery to me, that we are alone with the alone in the most magnificent way, playing frisbee in the Garden of Origins, straight from source and back again. Pure creational roles that expand and expand, and as our tree, this liquid light, crystalline light, in each of us and the planet's body, temple, and the body cosmos grows, which it is, more and more sweetness can be tasted directly. More and more intimacy, a different kind of intimacy, a radical beauty and intimacy that is the presence of divine love and the sovereignty and power of it. So, before I go on, you see it starts to be a roll. I do want to introduce these wonderful fellows here, whom I have the honor to co-create with a lot, and I'm very thankful, including Rumi's wedding day. But this is Eric Zang. Eric Zang. Woo! And Eric is very eclectic, as is Three Trees. This is Three Trees. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful artists, musicians, lovers of God. And both have traveled. I know that Eric has a particular fondness for the Middle East, I think, and Greece. And on the way, he has, utilized that opportunity well. So he's deeply steeped in the Sufi tradition, and Sufi is universal. Sufism, there's no isms, as we know. Buddha wasn't interested in Buddhism, etc., etc. And Rumi had no interest in Sufism. And the Sufi schools actually formed after Rumi in the 13th century, out of a divine generosity that was awakened in people's hearts as a result of the transmission of initiatory fire, the alchemy of joy, that is the beloved's presence, that actually is so relevant now and so precise on the evolutionary playing field. It's like the beloved's presence is what is the tawil, or the crossing over. And it is all the mystery of opening the innermost temple of the heart, the mystical heart of humanity, which is a collective heart and requires all of us being present, and includes everyone, even those who are not aware of this yet. And there's no place like that anywhere in the world. For those of you who haven't been with me before, you may notice that sometimes there are a lot of tears, which is very joyful. So we recognize this whole weekend, and always we're sending these blessings out to all our friends and relations. And I also want to acknowledge foremost the spiritual hierarchy that has kept the gates of light open for humanity through all the darkness and preset the seeds of glory initially, and have come for the fruition and flowering here now. So I'd really like to acknowledge all the wise ones from all traditions and none, and we know who they are, and they live within us, and we are one. We are one. So I say just a little bit here, and once we this is just a roll, just to open your receptivity and your listening even deeper. Once Rumi and the crew keep coming through, we may hear Hafez. I'm going to start in a little bit with some Egyptian text, which is just astounding, blazing invocation. And recognizing this is the power of the living word. This is what the Egyptians called the performative word. They had no belief in separation of heaven and earth or body and soul. So the language that languaged them was a spiritual communication of cosmic literacy, a higher light transmission that comes through us and breaks open the ground of the soul and sculpts and refines us from within as grail cups by the actual higher light vibrations. So when you're hearing, quote, Rumi, and they all are actually an amalgam, one voice rises from the universe. So when you're hearing any of these and you actually work with them directly yourself, I'm going to use this opportunity to give you 2 coaching hints, which is all you need. One, when you enter into the force field of Rumi's poetry, for example, that you enter consciously with a pure heart, a sincere heart. That's the only requirement. And then you call on Mawlana Jalaluddin Rumi's presence directly to work you well as a royal vessel. That's what happened to me. I had no idea what that entailed. It was perfect. Anyway, it works. So the thing is, it is a mystical force field. And people say, well, some people don't have any awareness of Rumi, and it's been spiraling around the globe for centuries and centuries, but like many, many, many mysterious transmissions still operating, a great deal of sculpting with this light, color, sound, vibration has occurred. And not accidentally, Rumi is a very precise transmission of glory, love's glory. Love's glory is no small thing. So, when Rumi came into my life, I had a friend back east, an artist who did sacred geometry, crystals, studied sacred geometry paintings. I would go to her pretty derelict studio in a funky neighborhood in Washington, D.C., and we would spend timeless hours together in ecstasy. She would paint, and I would deliver poetry and dance. And at that time, I did not know Rumi. But I had Rilke, I had a background in these sweethearts, all of which open you. But then she brought to me the first translation of Rumi. She brought the book Open Secret, and I was living in Maryland, homeschooling my sons. And we sat on this couch together, and we opened this book, and this light came up and entered my innermost heart and fountained out, and I burst out sobbing. And that's how I met Rumi directly on the inner planes. And then my whole life got restructured very, very fast. And I was put into an unofficial retreat with Mawlana on the inner planes. This was a very powerful time. You'll all remember this. Anybody in this room, I'm sure. You know, from harmonic convergence through 95 or 96, when Sirius 1 and 2 came together closely, the whole Lion's Path, and many beautiful galactic openings. Very big powerhouse. This is reconciliation now. And that's when 1111 came in, the first. And when I had that awareness, and it's a funny story now because it was my first Rumi performance. And I was at a dome in Maryland, a friend's house, and I was not practicing, you don't get to practice, but receiving Rumi in a pine grove. Usually I worked out in nature, receiving these transmissions. And the night before this offering, this so-called performance of the performative word, I said to the beloved directly, you know, this is so beautiful. And I'd never done anything like this before. I said, but something's missing for the completion. And that night, someone knocked at this dome, which was in the middle of nowhere in Maryland. Was not, I mean, you'd have to go out of your way to get there. And they knocked at the door, and they gave me the first announcement of the 11:11 gateway opening. I'm serious. And I just, wow. So I ended the evening going behind a screen with the ocean sounds behind me, and I read with a flashlight the announcement of the gateway opening, 11:11. Wow. So for me, when Solara asked me, and she came running over and said, Gabriella, will you speak at the 11:11 conference here in Sedona? And I go, oh, that was good. That was good to the crew. So I celebrate all of that and everything we can't even imagine, because look what's happened. Look what's happened. A galactic spin, 20 years. Look what's happened in the last 20 years. Look what's happened over this weekend. And what's happening every moment when we're present. So I honor and celebrate the preciousness of being. The preciousness of this moment, which is huge. This is like the fulfillment of Universal Casting Studio Lab Theater. When I was being opened back east, that's how it was for me. And I used to joke about it. And you know there's a lot of cosmic humor. I know that you've encountered it. And it's a grace. And we do see how we're being worked and how we actually do work constantly with constellations of glory, other superlight geometries and the spiritual hierarchy, other constellations of glory that are in our menu. And so the whole thing is to open and be aware and awake for the whole menu and to sing your note, whatever that is, which is sacred passion. And it's really about letting it sing through you. And I know you know that. Let's see if there's any other themes. It's just an opportunity to celebrate cosmic birthing power, cosmic birthing power, and passion. What is fueling all this within us and Mother Gaia and throughout the universe? There's a great lively gathering going on. You know, that's Rumi. See, 13th century, this has nothing to do with centuries as we know. This is just this timeless, streaming, radical beauty that's never going to stop and is completely irresistible. Yeah, so the great